Are there any motions to take note of answers to today's questions? Senator Scullion.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I rise to take note of answers given by Senator Conroy and Wong to questions asked by Senator Abetz, Brandis, Joyce and Sinodinos. Mr Deputy President, today marks the first day of Parliament since Julia Gillard sent Wayne Swan to dump
Senator Scullion, just refer to the Prime Minister by a correct title, please.
Today marks the first day of Parliament since the Prime Minister sent Wayne Swan to dump the government's come hell or high water. Failure is not an option. Guarantee to return the budget to surplus.
Senator Scullion, point of order.
Yeah, but show the same courtesy.
I wasn't sensitive about anyone, Senator.
Order, Senator Scullion and Senator Wong. Both senators, you need to refer to members of the other place by their correct titles. Senator Scullion, you have the call.
If I just correct that and refer to Wayne Swan as the Treasurer, Mr Deputy President. And so we've had this litany of garrulous assertions from both the Prime Minister, the Treasurer, and I understand the government as a whole, and Senator Wong has also made her contribution. I understand in some 142 occasions that she's promised that a surplus would be delivered in 2012 or 13. Across government, of course, we've heard today that 650 promises, round about the same promise, but absolutely certain that this will be delivered. The entire government's come behind this promise. Julia Gillard, Prime Minister, promised this on 165 occasions since becoming the Prime Minister on the 14th of June. Failure is not an option was again the catch cry. Probably a little bit like you won't have a carbon tax under a government I lead, Mr Deputy President. Something said with the sort of gravitas that the Australian people should believe. She was followed, of course, by guaranteeing that. Now, guarantee is, of course, a word that people associate with something that isn't going to be wishy-washy. This is actually a core and fundamental promise, Mr Deputy President. The Treasurer then went on to promise it on another 366 occasions. 366 occasions. The Treasurer himself stood up and said he would deliver it come hell or high water. Again, the sort of vernacular that's weaved around something that is absolutely core, something that Australians can trust because it's the sort of wording that they can put their trust in. On a couple of quotes, the Prime Minister said, "You can't run this country if you can't manage its budget." Well, that makes sense. It does. If you can't manage a budget, you can't run the country. And we'd agree with the Prime Minister on that. I'm sure a lot of other Australians thought that was very sensible. The Prime Minister then went on to say, "We've saved jobs, we've stayed out of recession, and prophetically, and we are back in budget." We are back in budget, not something that's being forecast. We are actually back in budget. Many Australians would have thought, well, I haven't been following politics, but that's a relief. That is a relief, because I do know the Prime Minister does bang on a bit about the cost of living, interest rates, and all those things that an unbalanced budget can provide. So I'm probably feeling a bit relieved. That was to the McKell Institute on the 4th of July. Of course, Mr Deputy President, we all know now that that was complete rubbish. And of course, why? Well, quite sensibly, it is because it will help with the relieving cost of living pressures. And this is the rationale. Wayne Swan said, coming back to surplus is about making sure we help those people sitting around the kitchen table and how they're figuring out how to make ends meet. In that regard, he went on to say, we'll be back in the black by 2012-13 on time as promised. And the alternative, meandering back to surplus, would compound the pressures on our economy and push up the cost of living for pensioners and working people. He then goes on again. It's important we bring the budget back to the black in 2013 because we don't want to exacerbate price pressures in the economy during that period. And of course, those are matters that was continued by the Prime Minister, who says it's important for families. It's the best thing we can do for the families, with the cost of living pressures, not add to inflationary pressures, and ensure that in this budget we won't. And of course people were quite relieved about this, and of course this, in my view, is clearly an acknowledgement that their decision to abandon the policy of delivering a service will lead to additional inflationary pressures. That will lead to additional increases in the cost of living and the pain, Mr Deputy President, for every single Australian. Everybody understands pain in the wallet at the moment is the toughest pain. Now, if the Australian people couldn't trust the Prime Minister on the carbon tax and the surplus guarantee, how is it that we can now be asked that they believe it when she says we care about any element of the cost of living pressures on families and, in fact, any promise she now makes on the eve of this new election?
Thank you. Senator Scullion.